What's up, guys? NEXXXT, aka confusednsurgent here, and welcome back to another episode of Will It Game. As I said previously, the series that is taking the internet and the real world by storm. You see celebrities and people all over the world of all walks of life talking about Will It Game. It's the next new sensation. People have stopped watching Game of Thrones and they're waiting on Will It Game to release. So here it is, another episode. In today's episode, we have what is one of the founding fathers of the graphics core NEXXXT architecture, and honestly what AMD's GPUs going forward would be based on even to today. GCN still, or graphics core NEXXXT, still drives the heart that is the AMD Vega graphics cards. This was the granddaddy of them all. This is the HD 7970. This is unfortunately actually an R9 285, which is not the same thing, but I already sold the 7970, and I did record the video with the actual 7970, but the audio and video lost sync, and then Premiere had a big problem with it, and so I'm having to re-record it after I had already sold the 7970. So this is an R9 285, but it looks pretty much the same as the 7970, so just imagine in your heads that this is in fact a 7970. It kind of looks like one anyway, with a reference blower cooler if AMD had made them like that. I don't actually think they made any 7970s with the blower coolers, but you can imagine. So as I said, the 7970 was the first chip released using the graphics core NEXXXT architecture. It was a complete departure from everything AMD had done before. It was bigger, bolder, badder, faster, stronger, BFS, bigger, faster, stronger. That's what AMD was going for. Also, BFSH would really be a nice addition to that: bigger, faster, stronger, hotter, and used more power. So higher TDP. But this was before AMD and NVIDIA had decided to research efficiency. So they were still putting all their points into strength, and hadn't looked at things like dexterity or agility or other statistics that may have been more efficient for their current build. So this is the 7970, as I said. Before I get into too many more details, I'll go over the outline of what we're going to do here today. First, I'm going to give you an overview of the card at hand. Then I'm going to go over the overclocking results with my particular card, so you can get an idea of how yours might perform if you were to buy one, or if you have one already and you haven't tried overclocking before. But again, due to the silicon lottery, your mileage may vary, and you probably will get different results from what I got. It's just a general idea. Then I'll go over the benchmarks I used to benchmark the card in question. I'll then display the benchmarks on the screen. Each benchmark will be in a sweet Excel graph. I hope all of you love those really detailed Excel graphs that I do. They'll be on there for about 5 seconds. You can pause at any point if you want a more detailed look. Also, down in the description, there is a Google Sheets document, a link to a Google Sheets document in point of fact. Click that link and it will take you to the Google Sheets document that I keep referencing. On that Google Sheets document, one more time, it has all of the FPS results from all of the cards I have reviewed so far. That way you can compare and contrast each one to each other. So you can say, how does the 950 compare to the HD 7970? This is an R9 285, but I'm going to point to it as if it was the 7970 regardless. Remember, use your imagination. There you go, rainbow in the sky. I can fly so high. Ooh, that's probably all I could say. I'm going to get sued by reading rainbow. Anyway, so you can compare and contrast, and that sheet is the authoritative source for up-to-the-minute results on the benchmarks. If I go back and redo any benchmarks on any of the older cards, I will update that sheet with the results. After the benchmarks have been displayed on the screen, we will come back here for my conclusions and thoughts. I'll tell you, can it play today's games at 1080p, and is it worth it at its current price point? Speaking of price point, this card released with an MSRP of $550 in January of 2012, and is now selling for between $175 and $200. It shouldn't be going for that much. It should be in the 120 to 150 range probably, and was in that range before the GPU mining explosion. Unfortunately, it's a decent miner. It's not highly efficient per watt, but the 7970s and the R9 290Xs were the workhorses of the mining craze in the 2013 area. So people that were still using them during that time frame seem to be picking some of those up now to try to get back into the game. The mining craze has not overly affected them, but has affected them some, as far as I can tell on eBay. So $175 to $200 is what you're looking at right now. The original HD 7970 released in February of 2012, and then the 7970 gigahertz edition, which was just an overclocked 7970, exact same chip, nothing else changed on it, released in June of 2012. So about 5 months later, AMD released an overclocked version of the 7970 in order to maintain their fight with NVIDIA for the top of the GPU market. It came out with 2048 stream processors, 128 texture units, and 32 ROPs. It had a core clock of 925 megahertz. However, the gigahertz edition had a core clock of, anybody? Bueller? 1 gigahertz. You got it. It's not that difficult. AMD is not overly creative. So gigahertz edition, a 1 gigahertz core clock. Bingo, bango, wrap it up, send it to market. So boost clock I have here as NA for the 7970 original, although the 7970 gigahertz shows a boost clock of 1050 megahertz. And I pulled these stats from AnandTech articles, so I'm not sure why they don't have the boost clock listed for the 7970, or it may not have actually had boost technology built in at that point. It had 5.5 gigahertz GDDR5 with a 384-bit memory interfacing with 3 gigabytes of RAM, at 4.31 billion transistors, and a TGP of 250 watts. 250, ladies and gentlemen. That is more than most OEM power supplies provide to the entire system. So if you're looking to stick this thing in a Dell or HP mini tower, that's not really going to be an option. It was built on the 28 nanometer process, and again retailed for $550, although the gigahertz edition retailing 5 months later for $500. So it's a faster card, only comes out 5 months later, and is cheaper. So that pissed people off, as you might imagine. People were pretty upset with AMD for that move. That's what we call in the business a dick move, but it happens. These are companies that are looking to get profits. They don't really care about you, the peon out in the country, or me. I'm not calling just you a peon. I would also be considered a peon as well. This card was refreshed several times. As I mentioned, it had the HD 7970, had the HD 7970 gigahertz edition. It then came out as the R9 280X, and this is the exact same chip, R9 280X, and then finally was replaced with the Tonga GPU in the R9 380X. So it was released a total of 3 times that AMD released the exact same chip. Moving on to the benchmarking section, we've used 2013's Tomb Raider and 2015's Rise of the Tomb Raider, 2013's Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor and its 2017 sequel, Middle-earth Shadow of War, 2017's Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Wildlands, 2016's Deus Ex Mankind Divided, 2016's Hitman and 2015's Rainbow Six Siege, 2016's Steep and 2016's Far Cry Primal, and 2016's Doom. Now, Rise, Hitman, and Deus all have DirectX 12 benchmarks, and I will show you those results. And then Doom supports both OpenGL 4.5 and Vulkan, which is a low-level API that has a drastic increase in performance for most video cards. So you'll see those in the benchmarks. On the synthetic side, we have Utigen's Heaven, Valley, and Superposition, along with 3D Mark's Firestrike and Time Spy graphics score only. I don't want the CPU to overly affect the results. All that being said, let's jump right into the benchmarks and come back here afterwards for my thoughts. See you there. And we're back. So I don't know if you are as surprised as I was by the performance that this thing is able to pull nigh on 6 years after its original release. 6 years. That's an insane length of time for a graphics card. So any of you that maybe you've never reached into the enthusiast territory of GPUs, you're not replacing your GPU with the highest end option every time it comes out. You may think 6 years is not that. I've had the same graphics card for the last 6 years. That's insane. To have this level of performance this long after original launch, especially with as many things that have changed in the industry since then. This card is a 1080p monster. Now, when it came out, 1080p was not even a challenge for it in most titles. But so you were looking at higher resolution, like Eyefinity sort of setups where you're looking at triple monitor displays where it could push those all by itself, which was quite an achievement. So you're losing the upper resolutions. You're not going to be able to get to your 4Ks with this. And even 1440p is probably going to be pushing it at higher quality settings on most titles. But at 1080p, if that's what you're looking for, and that's what this series is all about, then this card is very capable even today. At its current price, though, the question is it worth it? And the answer, I think, is maybe. If you can get a 1050 Ti for anywhere close to this price point, to the 175 to 200 price point, the 1050 Ti is going to be within a few percentage points of the 7970 in most metrics. In most of the games we reviewed, the 1050 Ti is going to be neck and neck, just a little bit below. The difference, though, is the 1050 Ti is going to be cooler, it's going to be quieter, it's going to pull less power, and it's going to be more future-proof because it obviously it's a recent GPU that's going to support more of tomorrow's technologies. And driver updates, additionally, are going to come out for many years to come for the 1050 Ti, whereas AMD will drop support for the 7970 at some point. They may have already done it now. I would have to go and look and see what their current release date. I know that certain R series GPUs and certain 7 series GPUs are no longer supported. I'm not sure if the 7970 is on that list. So just a real quick going over the results in a little more detail. You can see that even at very high settings in Rise of the Tomb Raider at 1080p, this thing's still pushing out 50 FPS. Very high on Shadow of War drops down to 42, but that's still very playable. Even at high 51, that's a little better, but that's probably where you'd want to stick around. Wildlands at high, very high on Wildlands goes down to 40. Probably bump that back to high where you're at 46, and that's very respectable, very playable in that title. Deus is playable at pretty much all the settings. It's not a very intense game. Hitman's playable at all the settings. Siege is eminently playable at every single setting. It's over 100 FPS at all of them. Steep, same way. You can play it at any one of the settings you wanted to, really, except for Ultra. Ultra drops down to the 30s. I probably wouldn't do that in Ultra, but high, you're good to go. So, like I said, this card, 1080p, can play anything you want. At the $175 to $200 price point, it's bumping right up against the 1050 Ti, and if you get a 1050 Ti at that price point, I would probably recommend going with the 1050 Ti over this one. There's actually a few games where the 1050 Ti even beats the 7970. It's really only the games that are better for AMD cards in general where the 7970 is able to pull ahead with any significant margin. All that being said, if you can't find a 1050 Ti in that price range, and they are expensive, I've seen them go all the way up to $250. So if you can't find a 1050 Ti in that price range, this might be a good card to look at. And do remember, when you're searching for these, you can look for the 7970 and the R9 They're the exact same card, exact same performance essentially. So you have a much larger pool of cards to pull from. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, make sure to drop those down below in the comments section. Also, there is a like this. There's like 2 thumbs. I don't remember which way they're facing. One's up and one's down. There's 2 thumbs under the video. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up button and then drop me a comment and let me know what you liked. If you didn't like the video, hit the thumbs down button and then drop me a comment and tell me what you didn't like, unless it's something I can't change. If you're like, I don't like this guy's face, thumbs down, then there's nothing I can do about that. Unfortunately, I wish I could, but I can't. And therefore, I am unable to take your criticism and do anything with it. So feel free to dislike if you just don't like this general area. And then if you don't leave a comment, I'll assume all the dislikes with no comments are people that didn't like my face. So my self-esteem is on the line, and my self-esteem is in your hands, or your thumbs, I suppose. Well, the whole hand's there, but the thumb's out, so thumbs. Also, make sure to hit the subscribe button. There's like a red button down there under the video. You hit that, it turns gray. That means you're subscribed, and you'll get a notification for when new videos come out. That's it for today, though. So thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.